How's it going, people? Jack here with another video. A different view today for it's also a different day. But before we get to jump into the main content of today's video, I kind of want to address something first. For I woke up today, Friday, and check out the subscriber count, which has passed 50k subs. It's amazing. I just really want to say thank you. It's crazy to me that getting on this YouTube journey of starting uploading training videos to being able to like share my thoughts, learning from other people, learning new things, getting into great gaming experiences through like YouTubers that are absolutely amazing as well. It's wild to me. And there goes the hammer. Somebody's hammering something outside. This is really annoying. But back on topic, the fact alone that, of course, it's not the entirety of 50k people who are watching my stuff, which of course would have been amazing, but that a good bunch of you are able to fixate your eye holes on this pretty face while pausing whatever is going on your second monitor, not judging. It's great to me, and I hope that this never stops. So I just want to thank you all for passing this half mark to 100k. So yeah, let's make that happen. And if you all are willing to not necessarily celebrate, but like hang out with me on the stream in the coming week, on the 5th I'll be streaming. It's sort of like a Q&A and just hang out stream. If you want to join me there, that would be great. I will not be doing that on the 4th, obviously, because it's celebration time. If you're anything like me, I tend to tune out during those days for, some time, spending time with family. So go celebrate, fire some fireworks, and have a swell time, and see you guys then. But now to the plat of resistance. For many don't know this, when you talk about 40k and it's why the lore and also sometimes also like the tabletop aspect, it basically boils down to my family is better than your family, my dad is stronger than yours, my cock is more bigger than yours, my cock can walk right through the door. That's the system of a down. So within the field of literature, this is what is usually categorized as PP measuring contest, and frankly, it's great. So for that reason, I have taken it upon myself to kind of trigger the Warhammer community, especially those who hold dear to their dads. For what I'll be doing today is making a Primarch tier list, figuring out who's the best to the worst Primarch. Now you may be wondering what the criteria are for the listing and all that. Well, it's not that cut and dry because Warhammer lore tends to be retconned or updated from time to time, so you can't just always count on the lore accounts. Also, given the fact that the Horus Heresy books are still being written today, you kind of need to take some of the stuff that I say with a grain of salt. Especially when you start diving into what the warp truly is like, and like the concept of time is nearly non-existent in there. But I will mainly focus on the implication on the lore, that being during, post and pre-Horus Heresy, also the battle prowess, because of course you need to do that, and also the leadership skill, because it's been showcased time and time again in any type of media. You may be a powerhouse, but you can't do the job alone. So here goes nothing, the Primarch listing you've been waiting for. Let's go. Alright, kicking up the list, we have Rogal Dorn. Yes, let us get one of the goodest boy aside first and foremost. We are talking about somebody loyal to a fault. He's the main man, Mr. No. Rogal Dorn embodied more than any other the zeal for the achievement of his father's dream, that of the unification of mankind. And after having been united with his dear old dad on the icy world of Inuit, he gifted mankind with one of the greatest and biggest ships that they've ever had, the Phalanx. Rogal is unquestionably S tier, the Praetorian of Terra, Mr. Blanky, the Primarch that was never tempted by chaos. Nor even could he, because he's so hard in the noggin. Besides having one of the greatest legion, and of course, subsequently, one of the best successor chapters of all times. Boy, have you said your prayers to the Emperor yet? Rogal was a beast during the heresy, and even after that. And despite his stoicism, when he lost both of his best bros, that being Horus to Chaos, and the guy was like, "Let the galaxy burn." And of course the Emperor's best boy, "I will die for that man." He broke the mask and felt true sadness. But that feeling was only second to his anger, which... Poor Nathaniel Garrow, who nearly got killed by telling Rogal about his brother's lack of a hairline. He felt so guilty for not having been good enough to protect his brother, father, and of course the Imperium. And after dust settled on the heresy, he set out on a penance crusade, also instilling a new rite of the pain glove, right, where they had to inflict pain on themselves, so to make the wheel of the warrior's iron. Rogal to me is what the benchmark for a loyalist should be, and for that reason there is no questioning that he deserves to be in S tier. That said though, I do wish that my man somewhat came back from wherever he's being held with a fresh new robot arm and a new sword, and yeah, just laid the smackdown on whatever is heretical in the Imperium and at large. Now, from one of the best boys to one of the worst. Let's talk about a warrior with the charisma of a cartoon villain like Lex Luthor. A man that actually was genuinely so good and so nice that he faked his accent just to make people feel comfortable. I'm of course talking about Horus Lupercal. He who has made young men around the world suffering from alopecia sound a resounding roar at the loss of their hair. "I feel the warp overtake me." By the way, if you are losing your hair in your early years, get some keeps and or use that phrase. It's free. I cannot in good conscience put Horus at anything higher than A. And here's my justification. Getting into the Horus heresy, he's one of the first characters that you get introduced to, and he is genuinely good and he's a god amongst Chad, and so are even his son, which actually, let's just put a pin on that because I'm not too sure about that one country boy called Ezekiel. And one can argue that if it wasn't for fucking Erebus, he would have stayed loyal. But then came the infliction, right? He got stabbed, poisoned, started hallucinating, was fed that one vision, but he actually knew that he was being tempted by chaos all the way through, but went with it. Second to that is the fact that while pre-heresy, he was largely considered to be the glue that held his brothers together, right? For he kinda had to, he was elected as being the War Master, but after that, after the fall, when half of his brothers switched to his side, or at least to the Chaos side, they largely did it for their own self-interest, for their own personal vendetta against Big E. And while this man was sitting comfortably from his ship, witnessing and quite savoring the scenery of what was going on the Siege of Terra, who was leading the charge and doing most of the stratagem, most of the calculation, establishing what needed to be done to make Terra fall? God is Cringe Peter, or Perturabo if you want to call him by his real name. He was the Chad that did most things, but of course when he witnessed that his brothers were acting a fool, he packed his bags and left his legion behind. We'll get to that. And also, in terms of fighting prowess, while Horus may have had his wonderful tactic of like clippering people with his claws and then clobbering them down with his club, that wasn't good enough. He was still not one of the best fighters out there, especially when the Emperor's executioner, Randy Ross, laid the smack down on him and was about to kill him, wasn't it for the fact that he got saved by the power of flashback. I call hacks. So no, unfortunately, while I actually genuinely do like Horus, I would not put him at higher than A. And especially when we're talking about the next contestant, Lion the Johnson, the Beast of Caliban, Son of the Forest. This monster, a man with so and has so many Well, aside of course from being the blackest named white man out there, he was an amazing general, having the acute sense of being able to find all like strategic points on the battlefield by just having a single glance at it, to being dropped on a planet of monsters and raising from it, well, a legion of monsters themselves. For the Dark Angels are just... But back on the Primarch himself though, he wasn't the physically strongest, but he sure as hell knew how to fight. For one, he knocked the fighting spirit out of Leman Russ, and I don't care what people are saying, it wasn't a cheap shot, it was legit. Also, he would have absolutely destroyed Coney 41st if it wasn't for, well, the terrorism. I'm gonna put the Lion at S rank, but one of the very few things that may pull him down is the fact that he was such a terrible team player. No, like seriously, he thought of himself so much better than everyone else, and it wasn't the type of narcissism that Fulgrim would like display at time, where he would like scour the entirety of the galaxy just to find the L'Oreal bottle. Unlike Sanguinius, he's not gonna be the good angel for his Dark Angel. Jesus Christ, I did not want to make a subtle fabricate reference to Christianity here. He was so extremely secretive about his plans and almost suffered the parallel paranoia that his enemy Konrad also had. Of course, one can argue that this has played to his advantage in cases like how we laid the smackdown on Jaghatai Khan, but aside of few cases, that has led mostly to failures, and that is something that gets reflected later on to his legion. Yet still, he's in S rank, so great and all. Now fourth we have Magnus the Red. Oh my god. This one is difficult. Before we place him anywhere, I'm gonna say this. Magnus did nothing wrong, but he was a dumbass. The Master of Perturabo was and remains nothing but a curious child with daddy issues. Well, daddy's issues. We're talking about three dudes here. Zange calls for his other wrong adoptive dad that keeps secrets from him. It's the classical tale of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But one can say that yet still acknowledge how foolish some of his moves were. The Emperor told him not to fiddle with psychic shit, but he went ahead and fiddled with psychic shit. Even Perturabo warned him about it by reciting the words of his father, the whole deal with the great ocean, the don't stare into the eye of the warp. But the dude went nope and brushed it off. It was plain and simple arrogance, one that he ironically shares with none other than his ultimate enemy, Leman Russ, whose heart, by the way, he punched out. Never forget, that never gets mentioned. In terms of sheer strength and psychic prowess though, pre and post heresy, he was still a beast. For example, in the presence of the Sisters of Silence, he just kind of shrugged it off in the same way that Khan later on will do with another one. Oh, that is so comical, that death. And post heresy is not even a question. If it wasn't for the resurrection of Guilliman, like, I don't know how much they would have been able to stop him. So Magnus for me would go on an A tier. Same there as post Horus. I just love the guy. Now, on to Leman Russ, the Allfather, the joke, the backbreaker of nerds, the Emperor's executioner. He's an absolute beast in both figurative and literal sense of the words. For if I'm not mistaken, it is from him that the Canis Helix gene seed thing came from, wasn't it? Which is a term that is applied to the altered gene seed, which gives the Astartes of the Space Wolf Space Marines their distinctive nature and endowed them with their unusual feral attributes, which is best seen in the way that every single one of their fight scenes is described, the way that they move unnaturally fast for how big they are. Like genetically, like a wolf, he craves to fight, he craves to be better, for he is better. Unfortunately, that leads him to be arrogant just like Magnus. And I'm just gonna put him at A without further arguments because I just care much about some of his other sons rather than himself, so yeah. We then get to my man, Perturabo God is Cringe. How does it feel to suffer from success? Well, this is a question that Petros should have asked GJ Khaled had he had the chance. 30 landed on Olympus, and everyone that saw him growing up was like, "You're smart." Well, that was because he knew everything. Being raised in a world where people were trying to backstab him on a daily made him lose all concept of loyalty. And it was only first when he met the Emperor that he knew what being loyal meant. Perturabo truly wanted to be the best. And originally I couldn't understand why this guy just couldn't take a break or something. Like, go somewhere else, go on space vacation. I mean, he's a Primarch after all, and I do believe that was a genuine question that Fulgrim asked him once. Like, brother, why don't you just chill? But this was only till I read Angel Exterminatus. There, things changed. It is where you get to understand a bit more about his backstory, where he states very clearly here, "You don't know the things I dream. No one does. No one ever cared enough to find out." He constantly had the Eye of Terror looming over him like an immigrant father asking you if you finally reached your doctorate. "Dad, I'm 13. Constantly setting him bad visions, judging his every move. But unlike Jaghatai Khan, he did something good out of it. Because he and his legion were just super effective. They went in somewhere, did the deed, came out, and didn't waste any time. But that at the same time was also the issue. Because to understand this, in the world of 40k, things tend to just be seen a lot of the time, well, mainly a lot by the Imperium, as being black and white, while they themselves actually do operate in a lot of grey. And there is no character better in 40k that represent the greyshness of the 41st millennium than Perturabo. The character that people most of the time consider to be the most well justified to have gone heretical. But then you start asking yourself this: how is it okay to ask 1/10 of your legion to be beat the crap out of just because they aren't living up to your standards? It's just batshit insane. But on the flip side, would the Emperor have done it any better? I don't think so. So that's why when people argue that Perturabo was the most well-justified Primarch to turn traitor, given that all of his hard work was wiped from Imperial records and his glory taken away from him, I'm kind of torn, because this is a common practice done in the Imperium, in the way that the Inquisition will frame somebody for having done or at least discovered something that they weren't supposed to see, Malcador. But despite all this, the man who failed like Italy, had the strategies of Germany, and ended up like Japan, Axis Perturabo gets... God, I hate myself for making this joke. Gets the A tier. Now, let us jump into something that may be a tad bit controversial for some people, but I don't care. The Gorgon, Ferrus Manus. This guy is cool. As cool as Colossus from the X-Men is cool. Because of his whole theme, and his ability. He's a forge bro, having forged an inordinate amount of weapons and equipments, and crafted so many of them with his own hands. And yes, Ferrus, wherever you are in the ghost and or spirit form, whatever, those are your hands. He didn't reciprocate the respect or friendship that was given to him by some of his brothers nor his sons. Well, aside from a very few. What's crazy is that in search for art to edit for this video, I realized just how much Yahweh stuff there are on Warhammer 40k out there. It's an insane amount, especially the one surrounding these two. Oh my. Stop it, Josh the K, not now. I feel like it was important to say because the Gorgon had the personality of stone, as cold as steel. His introduction in Shadow of the Gorgon has the man literally berating his legion, as always, for not being good enough, which of course I get it, that's what you're supposed to do as a general and or leader, here in this case, a Primarch for your army. That makes sense, but he did so because shit just didn't make him look good. The man spoke to his sons the way a conservative parent will do if they found out that their child was in an interracial relationship. He says here, I quote, "You shame me." This is an extract from after his sparring round with the Emperor's children. The thing is, I would like Ferrus and his high expectation were it not for the fact that these very expectations had crossed the limit of what remained of the atmosphere of Medusa, flown by Holy Terra, only to cross interstellar space. All that to slip to some hole in the warp and come back biting him in the arse. And even when you go back looking at his past, he never united the people of his world the way that his other brother Primarchs did, because he probably stumbled on some recordings of the 21st millennium from some guys representing the manosphere and how it is that the survival of the fittest is the best thing in the world, and he used that as the sole way of making them strong. Like, in terms of the treatment of his legion, I see him as a level lower than Angron. And also, he's the anti-Guilliman. Like, he is what Roblox Gummy Bear would be like if he succumbed to all the pressure that was put on his shoulders, like the responsibilities to carry the Imperium. So he's everything that he would never be. So Ferrus, I'm sorry, you may be breakdancing in your grave, but sit here. Okay, this is getting interesting, for we're moving from one who was seeking perfection, like was it the One Piece, to one who damn nearly attained it. I'm of course talking about the CEO of metrosexuals, Fulgrim. Nobody's perfect in a galaxy far, far from Kansas. Save of the century, except for the Emperor's children. Okay, let us talk Fulgrim.
Yeah, boy.
A Targaryen baby found on the world of Chemos, a place that sacrificed art and leisure on the altar of industries, its people forced to work without rest merely to just scrape through whatever remained of the decaying world. Now, sexy Malfoy here shows up and goes like, hold my dick. I mean my purple pimp piece of peplos. That's the clothes that he's wearing. And also, try saying that fast 4 times. He flipped the world upside down, Prince of Bel-Air style, making it into a bloody paradise of culture and beauty, reborn from his ashes, which is why he is called the Phoenician. As you may get from this amazing smile right here, I'm a huge fan of Fulgrim. Sure, he got turned into a hentai protagonist later on in his life, but pre-heresy Fulgrim was the shit. He won Horus over with his charisma, had a somewhat of a stable relationship with Goddess Cringe Peter and also the leader of the Ayatollah Konrad's Jaghatai Khan. Is of course the relationship with Ferrus that once again sparked Yahweh materials, and for the other cultured individuals there is gender-bent stuff of the two of them, like doing some blacksmithing erotica. Now his search for perfection was actually less... Jesus Christ, that freaked me out. Well, his search for perfection was less of a problem for himself and actually more for his legion. But it was only till he got the Sword of Leah that he started really losing his mind. Like, what did we expect? He had to be the best. He was forced to piggyback on Horus, a newly appointed War Master, and had to prove his worth. And he had to do so with incredibly low numbers of legionnaires. When he fell to betrayal like Lorgar, sure, he did regret it deeply, especially when only his awesome hair bro Sanguinius and Ferrus were the ones who truly understood him. Making the death of Ferrus by his hand, of course, the most devastating thing that made him completely lose his mind, having this demon then coming and taking over his corpse, or body. He hadn't died yet. Of all the traitor Primarch that I would like to see being redeemed or forgiven by the Emperor, I like to have Fulgrim back, especially with what fabulous bile is brewing in his lab with that perfect clone that had no chaos taint. Dope. Fulgrim goes to B. I would like to put him higher, but we haven't got to see much more from besides his demon self, and that wasn't him. That was not my Fulgrim. So we had a Primarch who couldn't understand that hentai is an art and is fucking glorious and got named appropriately. One who appreciated the art but got served to its more nefarious purposes. And now we have one who doesn't know what the fuck art is because he angry, he smash. I'm talking of course about Angron. I really want to feel bad for angry Ron Weasley, and I think that is a sentiment that is shared throughout the Warhammer community for all that he went through. Right, the Emperor yoinking him away from his slave brethren without helping him him out, him being enslaved and have those butcher's nail implanted into his head at a very young age, and living mostly in isolation before he found solace in having other slaves in his situation. I want to be for him a suburban white mom, feeling offended on his behalf. But then I look at Castlevania 41 Lord of Shadows over here and I think, maybe not. I just think that a lot of people have gone a bit soft on some of the weird stuff that he had done, not just to his sons, which was terrible, but around the Imperium when he was an acting Primarch, just because butcher's nails goes brrr. Like, he straight up violated his legion. And yes, I am using this word correctly. And I'm not gonna argue that 40k's Hulk's anger isn't justified, but the man was in harsh need for a trip to Fenris to cool the F down. Which is why I'm gonna put Angron at C. And another dumb thing was that when he got turned into a demon Primarch, the man's intellect got reduced to shit. Actually, he didn't improve much. Yeah, the fall at the Eternity Gate and stuff, yeah, the record says that it wasn't Khan who did it, but if you're going to be turned into a bootleg Scar brand, then at least show something bigger than that. But like, in terms of lore and implication and all that, I really feel for the guy, especially when you realize that he originally was supposed to embody the compassion of the Emperor. I'm like, bruh, seriously? But he never got the chance to do that. And his sons even felt so sorry for him though. But the point is, there are actually just so much more interesting character within his legion, like Mr. Kill Count Khan, and or the most fearsome character in the 41st millennium, Lorgar Aurelian. I mean, I'll simp. Yeah, Angron is gonna stay in C. Now, Lorgar, fuck Lorgar, he gets E. Look, I don't care, okay? I don't care. Hear me out. I can understand where he came from, right? Myself being once a Bible study dude, right? Seeking the truth. I luckily didn't have some fucking Erebus whispering in my ear telling me that, oh, you gotta do this is good for you. No, fuck that shit. You can get your understanding, have a nice glass of water or something and say, good, I got this, got something else to do, have a good day. You don't need to turn everything like, okay, right, burning of Monarchia was fucked up, but they were worshipping chaos regardless of where it's to be some benevolent way. Lorgar went full chaos, again understandable after what his dad did, Jedi mind tricking his legion, making them kneel and razing the city to the ground, all the while singing London bridges falling down. But like a Full Metal Alchemist villain searching for the truth, he orchestrated the heresy and screwed up his brothers. Like, if I were to change, right, let us make one single argument that will make him go higher to like D for dickhead. And that would be the fact that he suffers of the GW syndrome, of not having been expanded enough to more than just, well, he's a cultist, and that's it, right? That's what a lot of his stuff revolve around. Like, a lot more of his sons are way more interesting to hear about. Like Thor, for example. Geez, I read a book about him rather than reading about Lorgar, to be fair. But that said though, if I have to compromise, I'm gonna put him at D. Now that's going to be interesting if anyone's going to end up in F tier now. But shit, now we have Alpharius Omegon, formerly known as Alpharius, just for short. Who the fuck is this guy? Where did he come from? Where did he go? I am not going to do a Cotton Eye Joe. The leader of the Hydration Dominators, the bamboozler of Custodes, the epic pranking YouTuber. What's up gang, it's your boy Alpharius here. Today we're going to be pranking the Imperium. They like to call us traitors, but they don't know what we did. We may or may not have been the reason as to why the Custodes have turned so well at their job. It might or might not be because of us that the Great Crusade turned out so well. Oh, and also before we go, we want to send a message to our bros. Dorn, if you are there, just want to talk, Corvus, Sorry, not sorry, bro. I will say no more about Alpharius, just in case that I end up saying a lie. Because Alpharius has been dabbing on the Imperium for 10,000 years plus, and he's not about to stop doing that. He's the greatest troll that 40k knows of, aside from Zinch maybe. But my dude goes on A for Alpharius, and that's it. Next up we have Corvus Corax, the lovable goth. I don't know. Actually, I'm a bit conflicted on this one. He embraced his hobby as an avian expert and became a literal birdman. While he did receive the Angron treatment, he did so with a twist, right? While he didn't get any help, he actually managed to free his people. He got his legion and did a banging job at raising them, except for, of course, the equivalent of Jake Paul from the 41st millennium, the Alpha Legion, pulled a sick prank on him and sabotaged the Corax's attempt of rebuilding the Raven Guard by putting some demon blood in the gene seed facilities. Yeah, epic prank, bro. But did that stop him? No, he continued on his quest to kick and whoop Lorgar's ass, only to be stopped by Space Mujahideen Konrad. And even later on, when Lorgar got upgraded into a demon Primarch, he still got his ass whooped. For that reason, I'm gonna put in a B. And some may argue that he deserves to be in A tier, but then it comes down to my personal failure in appreciation of the guy. So yeah, he's gonna stay at B. But yeah, I see the consideration for an A. Now, when it comes to the Khan, we are dealing with a similar situation, sort of, with what we just had with Corvus, because I have to admit to you guys, I have avoided his books. And not because they're bad, right? It has nothing to do with that. I just haven't been caught by the interest of actually reading much into what Jaghatai Khan has done. Of course, I know of like the broader stuff that's been going on through the heresies when it was featured in other stuff, right? Yeah, he's all a speed demon, right? My name is Barry Allen, but I know that he's pretty cool, and I remember him standing out in the heresy, because was it not for the fact that he actually went against his nature of desiring speed, right? Him actually deciding to wait to gather intel to figure out whether or not what he was being fed by the Alpha Legion, I believe so, was correct or not. Or was it Mortarion? I'm not too sure on that, but nevertheless, he decided to wait, and that was an impressive feat on itself. And of course, during the Siege of Terra, him and the boys entering the battlefield on the bike, slaughtering enemies like where is some biker marines from Magnus Manus. So dumb. I was trying to do a biker mouse for Mars reference, but whatever. That was pretty cool. But the thing that I think stands out the most from Jaghatai Khan, in my opinion, is that just like Sanguinius and Fulgrim, is the fact that he genuinely had a love for humanity. He truly did care for humans, right? Because you know the stereotypes of space marines just being a bit too larger than life and not very much caring about the life of others. So due to my lack of knowledge, I'll put the Khan in B, and I know people are gonna be mad at me for doing that, but that's where he goes. Next up, the long-awaited one, the G-Man, Roboute Guilliman, the first Avenger. He's Space Captain America. He goes to S tier, and that shouldn't surprise anybody because he alone had one of the most special ability in 40k, that of being born with the ability to file his taxes. Nobody can beat that, and there's no surprise that he was able to constitute the 500 world of Macrae so fast, the place in which later on got established what? The Imperium Secundus. Before and during the heresy, he was just superb. He rallied his brothers, and despite him being viewed as nothing more than a tool by dear old dad, he knew that he had a job to do. And he is also extremely resilient. Like, Lorgar tried to blow him out in space, right? It didn't work. And just like how Khan actually went against his nature, he for once lost his cool, bull rushed the what's it called, the word bearers, resulting in a glorious moment of slaughter. well, on both sides, they kind of lost a lot. And I firmly do believe that if it wasn't for him receiving his much needed beauty sleep, the Imperium would have fared a lot better off if he was present. But that said though, it doesn't really matter, because as he was resurrected, because he wasn't really dead, he came back with newly found Super Saiyan abilities, for which I have some bullet points here, so let us read this. Kill the entire room of demons that was trying to prevent his resurrection, kill some more demons, and banish a roided out super nerd called Magnus back to the warp, who by the way set him on fire. Why did I write that as a detail? Went to Terra to purge the filth from all that was heretical and demonic, only to forge a special team made of Custodes, Sisters of Battle, and several other regiments, and acted as a minor Big E. Like, dude! Also, he has a big TD Eldar waifu. Wow, that it goes more talking about Ivrain and shit. To me, Rambo Gunnerman is truly the GOAT, and he deserves to be in S rank. Sorry about that, had to take a wee bit of a break, but we are back at it, and wait. What is the Curze doing up there, and why is Corax so low? Okay, let's talk about the best boy. Well, at least one of the best, that is. I think it will be genuinely difficult to find something, or at least someone who will trash talk Vulkan and all the Salamander as a whole, because they're just genuinely wholesome. They are lawfully and just, well, genuinely good in the Imperium. And Vulkan is just one of the prime example of what the power of love truly can do, and also the power of friendship. Because being raised on the planet of Nocturne, he was given a lot of love and then some, which he then reciprocated on his legion, as he refused to have them kneel before him for, I'm not exactly sure about the quote, but it was something about kneeling are for those who are willing to risk their lives for others, which his legionnaires were doing, so he would do that instead. So he's just nice. This is also reflected in the way that the Salamanders treat the Space Marines, as they allow them still to visit their families, so to retain their humanity. Also the physically strongest and biggest of the Primarch, he wields a hammer that is said to be requiring like 2 full Space Marines just to lift. It's like, damn dude. And while some people dislike this, being a perpetual, being essentially immortal, is a big plus in my book. It aids for eternal servitude. And I'm not exactly sure on like general feats of strength, well, beside the fact that he survived a lot of the trials and tribulation that Konrad Curze threw against him, and a multitude of nukes. Oh damn, Isvan. But Vulkan is just strong, he's nice, he's everything. That is cool. Least of course you are an Eldar child, then you're screwed. In other words, Vulkan is S rank. Now, given that we talked about one of the best boys, one who was given love, let's talk about the one who received none of that. Konrad the Curze, the man whose picture you would see when you search up the word terrorism in the dictionary. Konrad was born on the world of Nostromo. While a Primarch like Corvus Corax will have the albinism from a genetic defect in the gene seed, for Konrad Curze and his Night Hunters, it stems all from the fact that they lived on a planet with a lack of vitamin D. Thus they sought to give the D to many people. No, that joke is just too crass, I'm sorry. But no, the world that he grew up in, called Nostromo, was just notorious for every heinous things ever. People from their childhood just committing the most asinine and disgusting acts. All the while, of course, the people in power were just hoarding whatever they could to, well, live a good life. Konrad, like all of his other heavily psycho brothers, were constantly seeing visions of the future, seeing visions of his own death, those of his brother, and the plans that the Emperor would then have for him in the future. Something that he would come to hate him a lot for, thinking that the Emperor made him this way. There is, however, a verbal confrontation between Konrad and Sanguinius, where Sanguinius rebukes him for not seeing his situation from a different perspective. Konrad did not take into account that the environment and his circumstances were the things that shaped him into the person that he became, preferring rather to justify his heinous act as something that was predestined to just happen, that he had to kill But all overall, he was just a sad individual. You can blame him for it, but you also kind of feel bad for him, like, because he basically grew up being like a Nosferatu, you know, the one from Vampire the Masquerade bloodline, looking very ugly with bad teeth and pale skin. You know, very British. I'm sorry, I'm trying to interject a little bit of humor into something that is otherwise very disgusting. And I know that a lot of people will find him cool, but he's still a despicable individual, for he likes to comment a lot on the society but forgets that we live in one. I wanted to do a Joker joke, but there you have it. I am going to interject my biases here and say that I absolutely hate Konrad Curze, so he will go on E. Next up we have Mortarion. Well, I don't care much about Mortarion either. I'm gonna put him at, you know what, he's gonna get a C because he is incredible as a demon Primarch. He is just badass. And being able to face against him in the latest Warhammer video game that I played, that is Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, where he was just a pain in the arse, just goes to show that yeah, he got that status. However, then again, on the bias side, I am a Nurgle hater, but there are some characters that I can appreciate. And pre-heresy Mortarion, despite all the odds being turned against him, was one that I actually appreciated and somewhat respected. So yeah, that's why he goes there and nothing lower. And then we have the Hog Boy, Sanguinius. I mean, is this even a question? The man who the Emperor held at the highest regard. He was most likely to be the one to sit on the Golden Throne. Well, not necessarily the Golden Throne that we have today, but you get me meaning, like when the Emperor wasn't present, he would have taken over on Terra and be the Regent. Because much like Horus, nobody had anything against him, and actually he was the next one that they would have chosen to have as War Master instead of actually the Lion, who was the greatest general. Sanguinius just had a jack of all trades. Also, a lot of people tend to see Sanguinius as being nothing but a goody two-shoes, but it has been showcased many times that he is just as flawed as everybody else. However, he always knew how to prioritize the important stuff over his own personal feelings and or desires. An example was when he was coronated as being the leader of the Imperium Secundus, a decision that he confounded in Guilliman not to have desired but had to do because no one else would. Also, he was just an overall good Primarch to his sons. The sheer fact that his unrelenting love for them was the thing that quenched the thirst for blood is just nice. So yeah, this is the list. These are my Primarch rankings. Let me know what you think of them in the comment section below. This was a fun little undertaking, and I know that I'm going to waste a lot of time to overcomplicate this work for myself and try to add some animations here because I kind of feel like it. But yeah, if you appreciate this type of work, let me know by giving the video a like, and of course if you want to see more of this type of stuff, hit that subscribe button of course. And I wish you all a wonderful 4th of July, that will be in a few days, and yeah. Hopefully this video gets made in time. See you guys in the next one. Bye.